to Blue Monday if you're a 49er fan, and it's the red wave of Kansas City Chief. What do they call them? Chief Nation or Chief
Yeah,
Kingdom?
yeah, Chief Kingdom. I know they really went for the and you look. Give the Devils their due. I mean, they have put together an amazing franchise, but boy, you take Patrick Mahomes out, and it's a different football team. But he is a clutch player. Wow, what a remarkable move!
You didn't really say if you take Patrick Mahomes out there. Yeah, Patrick Mahomes is 21st century Joe Montana. Okay, he is the best clutch quarterback in the league of this generation. So he was the difference maker. And also the fact that the 49er defensive coordinator, Steve Wilkes, refuses to sell out or be aggressive in clutch moments. He's got this shell, two deep safety, Tampa 2 look that is bend but don't break. And in that final drive for the Chiefs, I think Mahomes was 8 for 8, and all he did was dump things off underneath, except for that deep crossing route to Kelsey. But the Niners were playing nothing over the top, and you pretty much let Mahomes march down the field, get into the red zone, and then work his magic.
Uh, you know, well, I'll get to the overall impact and the suffering I think that's going on, particularly from Coach Kyle Shanahan. I mean, this is really heartache for him. He's had an amazing career, and he just can't quite get there. He had that huge lead dry up on. He had nothing to do with that. Meaning he was offensive coordinator. I think was it 2017 with Atlanta, where they're ahead at halftime, 28-3 over the Patriots, and then he has to sit there and watch. He's the offensive coordinator, and he just watches as the Patriots, win the game.
Well, excuse me. The knock on Kyle then and now is that he didn't run the ball more to milk the clock to protect the lead, and he kept throwing, which of course works right into the opposition's hands. And in retrospect, I think he would acknowledge you can't try to do that with Tom Brady on the other side.
So maybe I'm letting him off the hook too quickly. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. You extend the game. You want to shorten the game. The best defense against Mahomes or Brady is to play keep away, use the clock. Now, some would argue that Shanahan didn't run the ball enough in the second half. I don't think that was the story. Steve Spagnuolo, the defensive coordinator for the Chiefs, is a wizard, and he sold out to get after Purdy. And Purdy was something like 4 for 12 before overtime in the second half because he was under siege. But the 49ers were so cautious to a fault, they didn't do likewise against Mahomes. And I know if you blitz him, you run the risk of other things getting burned. But I think playing afraid to lose rather than dare to win never works out in your favor.
That's interesting because as they were blitzing, Purdy actually has very good stats against the blitz during the regular season, Rich, as you know. And I was surprised that they didn't run some screens or some, as you say, they were so blitzing on third and long or on key third down situations. Why do you think the Niners were reluctant to run a screen or run something that would, allow that rush to get to Purdy as it was going to anyway, and then you just dump behind it? I mean, this is an armchair guy looking at it, so please.
Yeah, it's always easy in retrospect and hindsight and whatnot. But no, I think you're right. I think McCaffrey in the flat, in the open field is, what you want. You put the ball in the hands of your playmakers. Now, unfortunately, George Kittle was out for a while. He only had, 1 or 2 catches, no factor at all. He's another guy, a hot read, as they say. You throw to where the blitz came from. And Purdy did okay a couple of occasions. But look, there was that Chiefs defense went into Buffalo and throttled the Bills and Josh Allen in the playoffs. They went into Baltimore and stymied Lamar Jackson, made him look pedestrian, and he was the MVP of the league. So Purdy's, he's not a unique victim. This is what the Chiefs do. This is the best defense that Andy Reid has ever had to go along with an offense that's pretty darn good, even minus Tyreek Hill and the big game breakers that they had a few years ago. I mean, they don't really have great weapons outside of Isaiah Pacheco, Travis Kelce, and Mahomes. They don't have great receivers, but they did just enough. And Mahomes was the X factor, like I thought he was, and he owned the day.
Well, the Niners defense stepped up, I thought, big time. I mean, they really. You saw the Chiefs certainly you would think in the first half, and at the beginning of the game they were in disarray. I mean they were really being owned by the Niners. Wouldn't you concede that?
Oh yeah, the line of scrimmage. I mean, look how the Packers torched the 49ers in the ground game in the playoffs. Look how the Lions got about 170 yards, I think a season high. They were shredded. They got stout and they were playing beautifully. Now, losing Dre Greenlaw to a freak injury, jogging onto the field and tearing his Achilles tendon early in the second half certainly was a loss, because every opposing offensive coordinator is going to attack the weakest link. You're only as strong as that weakest link. Greenlaw is a Pro Bowler, and Oren Burks is a journeyman. So, that's something you hard pressed to overcome his loss.
This is from Luis. They shut down the Niners' running game. Purdy did fine and didn't turn the ball over. Mahomes is just the John Wick of finishers, and given even a few seconds, will kill you every time. Let me ask you about. There are a lot of aspects of this game. We can hear a little bit from Coach Shanahan and Purdy as well here in a minute, Rich. But let me just ask you and skip to overtime. As I say, we can dissect other parts of it, getting to overtime. But in overtime, will you help us with this riddle as to whether or not you want the ball first or don't?
Yeah, well, here's the thing. The new overtime rule created this season because of what happened with the Bills and Chiefs last year, where it ended in a nanosecond, 13 seconds, I think, and the Bills never had a chance to get the ball. In the regular season overtime, the team that scores a touchdown first or any defensive score wins the game. If I get the kickoff and I score a field goal, you have a chance to win it with a touchdown or tie it with a field goal. In the new overtime rule, each team is guaranteed one offensive possession, barring a safety. So you could argue that you defer if you win the flip of the coin. So the other team will either get a field goal, touchdown, or punt, but you know what you need to win. That's the argument of deferring. The argument of taking the ball, like the Niners and Shanahan did, is that you can score and have the opportunity to get the ball a third on another possession. If the other team ties you, then you could win the game on the so-called third possession of the game. Let's say you get a field goal, Chiefs come down, get a field goal, next score wins, Niners would get the ball. That's what Shanahan said is why he elected to receive the overtime kickoff rather than defer.
Interesting. Yeah, really interesting. And, he did something, you can say what you want about Shanahan. He's clearly a genius in so many ways offensively. He did something I don't know that I would have had the guts to do. He went for it on fourth down.
Yeah,
because
I know.
I mean, really, Rich, what were you saying? Like, no, mistake. Just take the field goal.
Absolutely. And, it worked. So ends justify the means. I still say you play the percentages and you gauge the situation in the game. And that was a very ballsy move. But it reminded me of not as egregious as Dan Campbell of the Lions 2 weeks prior, going for it with a 24-10 lead on 4th and 2 at the 9 or 11, which turned the tide. And as the Niners said in the aftermath, when they stopped the Lions on that fourth down, instead of a field goal to go up 27-10, which would have been close to a dagger, the Niners got new life. They felt like, oh man, we got a reprieve. We made this big stop. It's shifted the momentum, jump-started them, and we know all the rest is history. Now, it wasn't the same scenario, but I thought the risk reward warranted a field goal there. But Shanahan atypically was more aggressive than he usually is.
Right. You'd say if you'd had that same kind of aggression defensively,
Yes.
at least based, right? It's
Yes.
weird that Yeah.
Yeah.
The 49ers sacked Mahomes 3 times, intercepted him once. He had a 52-yard across-the-body completion to Hardman 2 minutes into the second quarter. And then Pacheco fumbled, right? That was a
Yeah.
big defensive move. They forced a fumble from Pacheco and recovered at the Niners' 8-yard line.
Oh, it was pivotal. Pivotal.
Yeah. So that shut down a KC drive. And then the
Yeah.
Niners made mistakes. McCaffrey
Yeah.
fumbled, right?
Yeah, and that's maybe the second time all year. He fumbled at the goal line earlier in the year. I don't remember another one other than that and yesterday. And of course, that goofy muffed punt
The punt,
when
right.
the rookie on the coverage team let it hit his foot. You never want to get close to the ball. Get the heck out of there.
God, that was
And then
crazy. That was
and
crazy. So
then
that, yeah, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Ray
Yeah,
McLeod had no chance. He had to go for the ball because it was a live ball, and
right.
initially it looked like it was his mistake, but he was trying to recoup the error of a teammate. So
Right.
that was, all these things become pivotal. Turnovers, in the red zone or
Well, that was a
giveaways.
that was a game-turning turnover of I would
Absolutely.
suggest, right?
Yeah.
The ball bouncing off of Luter, I think is his
Yes, the
sorry,
rookie. I don't
Daryl
even
Luter.
know much about him.
Yeah.
It
And then
harkens back. It
yeah,
harkens back to the NFC Championship game at Candlestick Park in I think 2012, when the Niners muffed 2 punts and lost to the Giants, who went on to win the Super Bowl. If you recall that, I think it
sure.
was Jimmy Williams, um,
Wow.
the son of the former White Sox general manager, Ken Williams. And I want to say Jimmy, but I'm not 100% sure.
Well, that's
But
very impressive, though, nonetheless, I want to say.
do you remember those muffed punts?
I
You,
do.
you,
I do.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
that
Big.
that cost them a Super Bowl trip. Well,
This,
I'll be
yeah.
real honest with you, Mark. I was very conflicted watching this game because as much as I admire the players, management, the coaching staff, there are so many things that Jed York and this organization has done to the city of Santa Clara in the contentious relationship they have with the mayor and the city council, and the treatment of a lot of former employees. I don't have the same fervor for who they are as I once did. It's like I know how sausage is made, and I don't know if I'm going to take a bite anymore.
Wow, that's an extraordinary thing. You think that it's a little too much of the tail wagging the dog now with the Niners' relationship to Santa Clara?
Well, read up on it from Lance Williams and Ann Killian of the SF Chronicle and SF Gate. They're strong arming the buying city council seats, being very contentious, and this it's very litigious. The city attorney in Santa Clara has have lawsuits against the Niners for alleged breach of contract and other things. But I've just read about it. I don't purport to have inside intel, but what is on the record is very disturbing. And at a news conference a few days before the Super Bowl, Jed York was asked point blank in a rare public forum what he thought about the city of Santa Clara and their conflicts, and he said, "Next football question."
Wow. Wow.
So he doesn't exactly endear himself to Santa Clara residents, nor the mayor, city attorney, and others on the board. Well, on the council, actually, they have shifted uh, the emphasis in the council because they put millions of dollars into the campaigns of pro team candidates, and they won. So
You
it's
know, it's
been
interesting.
yeah.
It reflects the general heft and strength of huge money
Oh,
that's associated with the NFL. I mean, it's
oh
just
my God.
you just cannot swim upstream against that torrent of money.
Well, look what the NFL is doing with the concussion lawsuits in the Players Association, fighting tooth and nail about their legal liability, even though almost every but he knows that the CTE and the depression and anxiety, all the debilitating injuries that the majority of former players have can be traced to their time in the league. But the league has been fighting tooth and nail for their culpability and responsibility for the medical benefits to these players. One guy said they're just waiting for one former player told me the league is just waiting for us to die.
Yes, I mean, I think that there's truth to that. It's a grim statement that's probably true. It's amazing that they, and I think it's in this context you're making the point. I think it's such a good one, which is, you can, the depth of money here is so great, and yet you guys won't write checks to guys who are, damaged for life as a result of helping propel this sport to the heights that it's achieved.
Yeah, well, the Boston University School of Medicine is the leading research institution on CTE, chronic traumatic encephalopathy, the brain injuries that all these players have. And they evaluated the brains. Obviously, it's only posthumous now. Of over 300 players, and 92% had evidence of CTE caused by playing the game. Now, you could argue, the risks going in, yada, yada, but the league has been fighting their legal liability forever. In fact, they hired the same law firm that Paul Tagliabue, the former commissioner, used when he was on in that law firm that represented the tobacco companies in their fight to be responsible for the dangers and damage that cigarette smoking caused.
Wild.
So that ought to tell you where the NFL is coming from.
Yeah, wild. Kim, did you have something for the great Rich Walcoff?
I did. Maybe not quite as serious, but I wondered if you saw that moment where Travis Kelce kind of got all aggro with his coach and bumped into him. And
Tony, run some of that while Rich talks about. Yeah, go ahead.
I have a picture of it. Here's a picture of that. I mean, this just the anger, and he bumps into the coach and nearly knocks him over. And after the game, Coach Reed says, "Oh, he's just really passionate." But I've never seen a player do that to a coach before. And I get that tensions are running high and he cares about winning the Super Bowl and whatever. But is that a problem? And does that any repercussions come from this?
No, because it's the classic. Look, if he would have knocked him down and broke his leg and they lose the game, maybe there's fallout from it. Travis Kelce was targeted once or twice in the first half. He was open on the preceding play where I think Mahomes was struggling and didn't find the receiver. And what Kelce was doing was telling Andy Reid, the offensive mastermind, get me the freaking ball. And I am lit up. I am over the top. So those heat of the moment incidents are just that. And when it's all over, nobody holds grudges, or no one is saying, "Oh, Travis, you're going to be fined, suspended, traded, or cut," or anything like that.
Well, winning is a great elixir, by the way.
That's the ultimate deodorant. Well, but Kelce had, I think, 10 targets and 9 catches, and 7 of them after halftime, I believe.
I had him as one of the props to score a touchdown, and he didn't. In fact, just to speak to my fellow degenerate gamblers out there, I had Valdez Scanlon to get more than 20.5 yards. How many yards did he get? He had 20. more than 20.5, but he was down to 20 after what, Rich? He caught that pass, and then he backed up. He ran back 4 yards. And he
were you screaming at the TV?
I was.
Were you screaming at the TV?
I was.
What are you doing?
Yeah.
Why are you yelling?
Exactly. Now I've got a couple of things from listener viewers, and I'll let you go. Thank you, Rich Walcoff, covering so much today. But this is, I think, super relevant. Old Emo says, if the 49ers had made their extra point, there wouldn't have been overtime. They would have won the game by 1 point. Thoughts?
Well, anything that happens, you could point to half a dozen incidents in that game that would have changed the flow. But it doesn't work like that. If he missed the extra point or missed the field goal like he did in Cleveland, and at the end, which would have won the game against the Browns, and Jake Moody, pushed it right. That's one thing to say. You would have won then because that was the final play. But to cite a blocked point after touchdown in the middle of the game and saying, "Oh, they would have won." You know, no coach is going to think or believe like that. It's not.
But to be fair to old Emo, I mean, you would have been ahead by 4, not 3, right?
Well, true, but that changes a lot of things, and we can't speculate on the hypothetical reaction. What the Chiefs would have done, how they would have handled everything from that point forward. Sure, it was a key miss, but you can't cite it as the reason the Niners lost the game per se, because there's 90 plays in the game, on offense. You know what I mean?
This reminds me of when Rich took calls after the game. This is really great. Here's from TM. Should have fallen on the fumbled punt ball, tried to grab it and play hero. I don't think so. I actually looked at that play, and, Ray McCloud knows what he's doing. He's not, he's a very good return guy. I think he tried to grab it because that was the best chance to get control of the ball. If he tried to jump on it, you don't always get control just by jumping on it. Do you agree, Rich?
Well, yeah, for the most part. I mean, first of all, it is beyond bang, bang. I mean, that's in a nanosecond. He's got to make this decision. And there's a loose ball squirming at his feet. He's trying to pick it up. In a perfect world, you do generally want to fall on the ball, because getting the extra yard at the risk of getting smashed and having the ball popped loose is not worth it. But, I'm not going to say that Ray is wrong to try to make something happen there. He was trying to get a hold of the darn thing, and it was, it was just squibbing around. It was really,
as you say, he was covering for a teammate who, made a
mistake,
huge error. Yeah.
Don't be near the punt as it's bouncing toward the return guy.
By the way, this is true. I think this was said to Randy. Another Ray is a great name, says Doug, and it is not only a great name; it is the best name in the NFL. Ray McCloud. I love Ray McCloud as a name. It reminds me of every cool person I grew up with in Washington D.C. And bravo, Ray McCloud. I hope he's around for a very long time. What happened to Debo? Asked Doug. It was weird. He goes into the tent, Rich, and he comes out. He was a beast after he came out.
Well, it's funny. When he went down, he grabbed his hammy, and it looked like he pulled it or tweaked it, and you don't bounce back. There's no elixir. There's no painkiller. There's nothing that would enable you to play through a pulled hamstring. But he must have been cramping. That's all I can think of, because he came back with a vengeance. Now, unfortunately, and what you could cite this all over the place, he only had 3 catches, and Kittle had 2. Now, those are two of your top 4 playmakers. And the way to win in the game like this is put the ball in the hands of your playmakers. But obviously, McDuffie, the Pro Bowl cornerback, and Snead, the very solid corner on the other side, are really good. And their safety, Justin Reed from Stanford, solid guy. This defense, again, they are number 2 in the league behind the Ravens. And in the postseason, they were just lights out. So, you tip your cap to them. They are really, they kept the Niners in check, which not many teams have done for, 60 minutes.
Pardon the last couple of minutes here. I know that we're good. And by the way, I saw someone in the chat. You're a bunch of homers. Yeah, I told you when we started. We were born in San Francisco, and we are homers. I unapologetically a Niners fan.
There you go.
So the question about the future: how many of these guys can you keep? How many of these playmakers that you talk about may be around for next season? Purdy's still under a rookie deal. I guess it's that one.
That goes another 2 years before he can renegotiate and get an extension. So they are living large, playing with house money, because Purdy makes under $1 million a year, and every other elite quarterback in the league is making 20, 30, 40 million a year, eating up a good chunk of your salary cap. The big free agent name of note is Brandon Ayuk. And number 11 is, quote, gonna get paid, because along with Debo and McCaffrey and Kittle, that's your Fab 4. Now they'd like to get a speedster. Ayuk is very quick and runs amazing routes. Debo is powerful and runs amazing routes, but neither is a burner. Neither is a guy taking the top off the defense. So that's something they'll look to add, I think, in the offseason. Ray McLeod, Ronnie Bell, the rookie from Michigan, are fast guys, but they don't. I think of a guy named Danny Gray, very fast rookie too. But they need a big, fast receiver and a need to re-sign Ayuk, and I think they're positioned to do that.
I so miss hearing you on the radio, and I love that I get to hear you here. Thank you for spending
Mark.
time with us, man. Yeah, really miss you.
Yeah, well, you were kind to say, and as I said to you last time, if I was making a comeback, I'd ask you to be my agent.
Okay. Hi, it's Mark, and I thought that was great. Hit the notification bell. You'll know whenever there's a new video being dropped, and please subscribe to our channel to help us save the universe.